voljela bih kazati par riječi o tome kako smo i zašto smo ovdje i sada. Dakle, taj događaj potresa u Zagrebu, a onda i u Sisku je nešto što je na sve nas djelovalo ozbiljno. Počelo je sa covidom, nastavilo se sa raznim drugim krizama, nastavilo se sa ratom u Ukrajini i tako dalje. Dakle, svi smo kontinuirano opterećeni, pa tako je i ova konferencija na neki način opterećena svime time. Ali smo htjeli, dakle, takva je odluka Upravnog odbora Hrvatskog geotehničkog društva, ovu konferenciju posvetiti petrinjskom potresu i iskustvima koje smo stekli bilo nakon potresa u istražnim radovima različitih vrsta, bilo kroz projekt, izvedbu i tako dalje, sanacija koje smo izvodili. Zato i ovaj naslov geotehnika u epicentru, da bismo vratili fokus na geotehniku. Nažalost je geotehnika vrlo često nekako izmaknuta i zato je jako lijepo što je tu sa nama profesor Atalić, profesor Josip Atalić, koga znamo svi iz medija i iz akcija nakon, ne samo tako, jel da, ali svi su ga viđali na takav način. Ali evo, da vratimo natrag vezu između konstruktera i geotehničara možda bi bilo dobro. Ova knjiga ima cover and logo just to try to show how important geotechnical influences are. So, ovo je snimka sa stranica USGS-a, dakle Američke agencije United States Geologic Survey, gdje se nakon svakog potresa može vidjeti linije intenziteta, vršne akceleracije itd. Pa ovo je jedna od tih slika. Shvatilo se nekako da to nije previše poznato i zato smo to metnuli i na naslovnicu i zatim kao logotip i tako dalje. U ovom organizacijskom odboru prva među jednakima, što kaže naš predsjednik, ali dakle predsjednica savjetovanja je Sonja Zlatović, predsjednik je profesor Leo Matešić, profesor Minažek je tajnik ovoga društva, profesor Sokolić je blagajnik društva, poštovani kolega Vujić je jedan od značajnih članova ovog organizacijskog odbora, vrlo aktivnih i predstavnik sponzora glavnoga ove konferencije i tu su još kolegice Maja Vuković-Bogović iz IGH, dr. Podolski iz Hrvatskog geološkog instituta i docent Perenić iz Sveučilišta u Rijeci. Što se tiče ove konferencije, željeli smo pokroviteljstvo International Society of Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering, and we wanted to have an advisory board which would contribute to this conference and to the contents of this conference. So we invited Professor Kenji Ishihara, famous for his work on earthquake geotechnical engineering. He was professor at the University of Tokyo, and then later on he has been a professor at the Chuo University of Tokyo in Japan both. So his contributions are very important, and we are really thankful for his support through our work. He was also here in Croatia in 2013 as a non-valor lecturer, and he gave us support in Poreć conference in 1998 when we organized the Danubian conference on soil mechanics and geotechnical engineering. Professor Ikuo Tohata from the University of Tokyo originally, and then among many other universities and organizations, he is connected now with Kanto Gakuin University, Japan. He not only worked and served as a member of the advisory board, but he also wrote a very interesting and useful paper. I believe you will find it at the beginning of this book. He was also a guest of our society some time ago. Professor Miško Čubrinovski, originally from Macedonia, from Skopje, he was working in ISIS. A little bit older colleagues know ISIS, a very important institute. Later he moved to Tokyo University. He worked a lot in Japan, in 2 institutes, and now he is professor at New Zealand University of Canterbury, Christchurch. At the moment, he is chair of the Technical Committee, Earthquake Geotechnical Engineering and Associated Problems at our international organization. He was asked to contribute to this conference as a member of advisory board, but also he wrote very, very interesting paper for this conference about the importance of this kind of events and this kind of experiences as we are now gathering and sharing our knowledge and experiences after earthquakes. So he showed here in this paper how different earthquakes contributed, not earthquake of course, but the research after the earthquakes, how it contributed to the understanding of behavior of soil and to the earthquake engineering. Professor Dietmar Adam, our very dear friend and guest, he is here with us now. Our cooperation with TU Wien is very important. Professor Brandl was giving us support for many years, and later on Professor Adam also contributed a lot. He was here as a non-valor lecturer, and we are very grateful that he is here with us now. Professor Attila Ansal was at the European Association for Earthquake Engineering. He was Secretary General from 1994 to 2010, and then President from 2014 to 2018, and then Vice President next 4 years. Professor Orlando Orense, also from New Zealand, was a very important member of the advisory board. From this side, from Croatia, we are having in advisory board Professor Ivan Vrkljan, who was Vice President of International Society for Rock Mechanics in 4 years, and also President of the Croatian Geotechnical Society, very active at that time. We really flourished. Professor Leo Matešić, who is President of the Croatian Geotechnical Society in this term. Professor Krunoslav Minažek, who is Secretary of our society, and me, of course, as a conference president. In our scientific committee, we are having many members from Croatia and also many members from abroad, and we are really grateful for the very serious work done by the reviewers. It is an important step, and it is neglected rather often, the reviewing of the papers. Each of our papers was reviewed by 2 members of the scientific committee, members of international society. Somehow it would be fair to stress these 4 names of the reviewers who did the most serious work. It is really very important, their contributions. Of course, we are very grateful for the support given by the administration here. Dakle, zahvaljujemo na podršci županu Sisačko-moslavačke županije, zamjeniku župana, gospodinu Mihajlu Juriću, koji je ovdje sa nama, hvala vam danas. Poštovanoj kolegici Blanki Bobetko-Majstorović, koja je također sa nama, hvala puno. Profesoru Darjanu Vlahovu, pročelniku Upravnog odjela za gospodarstvo, investicije i razvojne projekte, i gospođi Sanji Mijoković, pročelnici Upravnog odjela za poslove župana. Zahvaljujemo veoma značajno na podršci Hrvatskoj komori, nešto nije u redu, Hrvatskoj komori inženjera građevinarstva i predsjednica komore je ovdje sa nama danas, što nam je posebno drago, što nam zaista puno znači. Mi smo dobili podršku višestruku od komore i veoma je važno da geotehnika posebno bude ne istaknuta više nego drugi, nego da bude prepoznata kao posebna i važna disciplina. Zahvaljujemo također podupirućim organizacijama, dakle platinasti sponzor je firma Grasa. Imamo seriju zlatnih sponzora, koji bi se sad, evo ga, seriju zlatnih sponzora, njihove logotipe možete vidjeti u knjizi, njihove reklame možete vidjeti u knjizi, njihove logotipe možete sa linkovima i tako dalje uskoro vidjeti i na našem webu. Imamo 2 srebrna sponzora i 4 brončana sponzora i još osim toga nekoga izvan kategorije. I imamo seriju podupirućih organizacija, dakle Sveučilište u Zagrebu je preuzelo pokroviteljstvo nad ovim skupom, tu je veoma bitna Hrvatska komora inženjera građevinarstva i onda 3 visoka učilišta, dakle Rudarsko-geološko naftni fakultet Sveučilišta u Zagrebu, Građevinski fakultet Sveučilišta u Rijeci i Tehničko veleučilište u Zagrebu sudjeluje sa snimanjem. Natrag možete vidjeti kameru. Dakle, ova predavanja koja će biti danas i sutra ovdje izložena moći će se vidjeti i na našim web stranicama naknadno. Sada bih voljela reći nekoliko riječi o našem programu. Dakle, danas evo ćemo najprije vidjeti, mislim, svima zanimljivo i u svakom slučaju predstavnicima županije, predavanje profesora Adama iz Beča koji će pokazati nešto o korištenju geotermalne energije i više od toga. Članak koji možete vidjeti u knjizi se odnosi na određena mjerenja napravljena na jednoj stanici podzemne željeznice, ali predavanje će biti bitno šire. Nakon toga ćemo imati jednu vrlo kratku pauzu. And after this, after a very short break, we will have some lectures, mostly delivered in Croatian. So first, Professor Josip Atalić, University of Zagreb, will show something about the organization of volunteers who are members of the Chamber of Civil Engineers and other engineers, and also about the cooperation between structural engineers and geotechnical engineers. Professor Davor Grandić, University of Rijeka, will deliver a lecture which is very valuable for us on the new generation of Eurocode 8. Eurocode 8 is to be changed as all other Eurocodes, and one of the goals of these changes for this new generation was to simplify the calculations, etc., but they didn't succeed, it seems, in this. And Professor Grandić will give us a very useful, very detailed overview of these changes. It is very good to hear him today. Later on, we will have some shorter presentations. Our colleague Tomislav Fiket, who is vice president or vice director maybe of the Croatian Seismological Service, he will show how they succeeded. He was leading this, how they succeeded in arranging new equipment for the seismological service, because we didn't have many data at the time of these earthquakes in 2020, but with their efforts, they succeeded in making this instrumentation much more significant. Our dear colleague Ivan Muhovec, who is also organizer of the excursion for this Saturday, he made a paper on some of the damages which occurred during the earthquake, and he will show this in a short overview, in a short lecture today. Our famous architect from Petrinja. Petrinja is how many kilometers near Sisak, and Petrinja was damaged mostly in this earthquake, and I didn't show about this, although it is present in our logo. So the epicenter of this earthquake, which we call Petrinja 2020, the epicenter was very near the Petrinja city, and it is one of the places which suffered most. So a very famous architect, Davor Salopek, will show us something on the traditional architecture here in Petrinja and in this area. And it is very interesting to understand that traditional buildings, I will show some photographs, were not damaged in these earthquakes. And at the end of the program today, we are having Dr. Ivana Miletić-Čakširan, who is leading the conservational department of the Ministry of the Culture or something like this here in this area in Sisak. She will show us something about the damages and her work and the work of her colleagues here after the earthquake. They are very dedicated and very interesting to see. So after this program, around 5:30, we are having organized a walk through Sisak. Sisak is a city of very interesting history, and you could have a map showing the historical places in Sisak here. So here we are seeing the Hotel Pannonia. On the north is the railway and bus station, not many minutes from here. He will start the walk from this railway station, and he will finish it in Stari Grad. Stari Grad is an interesting building, etc., where we are having dinner today. So the walk will be guided by the senior educator at the Museum of City of Sisak. And after this, we are having the dinner in Stari Grad. So here we are seeing one of the photographs of Stari Grad, and the restaurant is near here. Stari Grad is a museum, part of this city museum, but it closed at the moment due to the damages in earthquake. And it must be said that it is a very beautiful place. So Sisak has rich history, and also it has very beautiful rivers, Kupa and Sava, and this is the place where they are connecting. And if you need some peace, it is a good place to go there and walk a little bit. So here at 8 o'clock we are having dinner. Tomorrow morning we will have, after the second opening, we will have the lecture of our president of the International Society for Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering. And we are very proud that he came here, Dr. Mark Baluz. He is sitting here in the first row, and he is famous for his dancing, and he is famous for his goodwill. I didn't see you in the water, but his approach is very interesting, and he is also trying to support us in many different ways, so we are grateful for this, truly. Thank you very much. After this, lecture on geotechnical forensics, which is also interesting very much in the sense, this topic of this conference. We are having here Professor Carlo Lai from University of Pavia, who was leading a serious European project. It was Horizon 2020, and his lecture would be on multi-scale zoning of territory for earthquake-induced soil liquefaction. So he will show the results of this very extensive project, and also the research which was developing after the project was finished. After coffee break, we are having some lectures from our colleagues here in Croatia. So first of all, the main or most important or the most famous seismologist, Professor Marijan Herek from the University of Zagreb. He will show some seismological properties of the Petrinja earthquake in the first 6 months of activity. He will give a short overview also of the Turkey and Syria earthquakes, which have surprised in a way, so we could all learn from this also from him. Our colleagues from Croatian Geologic Survey will show us the results of their investigation after the earthquake, and then with the question what we could learn. The first title of their presentation, of their paper, was "Could we learn anything?" But we tried to persuade them that it would be easier to put what we could learn and be a little bit more optimistic. Then we are having our guest from France, who is presenting work of a series of colleagues from France, Germany, Croatia, and this is rather interesting investigation on the consequences of Petrinja earthquake and some new technology in investigation. Then we are having our colleagues from the University of Zagreb and Terra Compacta. Professor Tomljenović is a geologist, and Mr. Padovan is a geophysicist, and they are going to show preliminary geophysical exploration on the area which was damaged by these sinkholes. These sinkholes were opening also before the earthquake, but the earthquake provoked opening many of them, and it was rather interesting to try to recognize what could be done, how to recognize the places where such sinkholes could be expected. And our colleagues from University of Zagreb, Professor Biljana Kovačević-Zelić and Dr. Helena Vučenović, with other co-authors, made a paper, which you can find here, of course, on geotechnical site characterization. Both of these lectures and both of these papers are connected with the biggest sinkhole in Mečenčani. Professor Željko Arbanas from University of Rijeka will show the investigation his university was leading on damages and liquefaction after the Petrinja earthquake in this area. After discussion, we are having lunch, and then after lunch, we are having some papers on the rehabilitation works. So first, it is our colleague Ivan Mihaljević from Geocon showing the damages on the levees during the earthquake. It is rather interesting because liquefaction was present in many places on these levees along along Kupa and Sava rivers. And here you could see a very nice and interesting overview of these damages. So it was liquefaction with cracking of the levees and some ejecta on the bottom of the levees. Some are not visible. He will also show his work and work of his colleague on the remediation measures. So in first days after the earthquake, some work was done to prevent serious damages later on. And now we can see, and I hope we will see this also on Saturday during our excursion, we will see, I hope, some of the solutions and the discussion on how to find a solution. Professor Leo Matešić from Geocon Zagreb and also University of Rijeka will show his work on the damaged bridge Most Gromova here in Sisak. We hoped also we could see some of these works, but maybe not at the moment, but we will see the solution. And he will also give an overview of some of the, not damages, but on the behavior of gravel columns under the reservoirs here in Sisak. This may be quite interesting, okay? We are having Professor Milorad Jovanovski from Skopje, who will give us a GIS-based approach in preparation of geotechnical maps for planning of Skopje city development by applying polynomial interpolation method. These papers, some of these papers are present in this book, but some of these papers and some of these lectures are not present yet in the book, and this is one of the consequences of the crises we had here in Croatia. We had this COVID, then we had the very serious earthquake in March 2020 in Zagreb, then we had very serious earthquake here in Petrinja in December, and many aftershocks in the same year, 2020. And then we had many other different problems in our lives. And also we have now the war in Ukraine, and it is something we are trying not to notice, but it is influencing all of us. So some of the papers were not ready for the printed version of the book, of the proceedings, but in a couple of days you will be able to see some of these presentations and some of the papers which were missing from the proceedings, from the printed book on our websites. We are having also our colleague from Budapest, Professor Görög, and he will show excavation support analysis in marl formation in Budapest. Professor Miščević from University of Split will show their investigation on the friction between marl and concrete. And Assistant Professor Josip Perenić from the University in Rijeka will represent the whole group of them who are showing their research on landslides through physical and numerical modeling. So those papers which were not here in this program will be presented by posters, and posters you could see already are here in that corridor. After this, we are having again a walk through Sisak for those who were not taking this walk today. And after this, at 8 o'clock, we are going to have gala dinner here in this room. So we hope we will all have good time with this. And the third day of the conference is the excursion. So here we could see the epicenters of the Petrinja earthquake. This is the central one near Strašnik. And these colored epicenters are epicenters of the first 2 days after the main shock, and the others are the epicenters of the later earthquakes with magnitudes above 3. So this is here just to show these several places: Sisak, where we are now, Petrinja, which we will visit, Strašnik, which is the nearest to the epicenter, and Gora. We will see some of these places in the excursion, which is going to start from this hotel. And you can have this map on our website. The excursion was prepared by our dear colleague Ivan Muhovec, our dear colleague Damir Vujic, and the president of the society, Professor Leo Matešić. We will visit a village called Petski, where we had this kind of rockfall, and this is one of earliest photographs of the biggest sinkhole. We are going to visit it in 2 days. The lunch will be given in Korablja Tišinić. This is a restaurant in a very beautiful area, and you can see different interesting animals there, and food is perfect and very tasty and very good. But the restaurant is organized in one of these traditional buildings, and architect Salopek is that one who organized the deconstruction of this house somewhere, and then translation of this, and then reconstruction it here. So this is one of those wooden timber houses which were not damaged in the earthquake. This is another one. This one is in Mala Gorica, and we are going to pass Mala Gorica this Saturday. And you can see here this kind of joint. You can see here is called creation joint. And this creation joint is helping these wooden timber houses to behave beautifully in the earthquake. And also you can see these foundations, which are actually boulders under the corners of these houses, which allow them to slide a little, or they just spend some energy on this movement. The title given by architect Salopek to this kind of houses is Korablja, which is a kind of romanticized, how to say this, I don't know, romantic, let's say, way of saying ship. And he was thinking of the ship which takes people together with their food and all the animals, etc., etc. And at least a pair of each kind of animals is entering this ship, and all the things necessary for a trip. But also it is interesting that this name, Korablja, is something which is well showing the type of the building which behaved well in these earthquakes. Here are some small chapels which were not damaged in this area, wooden or timber chambers, and here are some views of Kupa. So Letovanić, Stari Brod, na Kupi, Mala Gorica are places with wonderful, wonderful views, and these are really nice places for excursions, for enjoyment, for finding peace. And this is something what we wanted you to have here, another view, not only the earthquake, not only the damages, but also the very beautiful nature in all these places around.